Hey beautiful, have you considered subscribing to our channel? Help us reach our goal of 1,000 subscribers.
Eidolon 7 drifted on the edge of known space, a gentle world of sapphire rivers and ivory cliffs, where the air smelled of ironwood sap and the nights were lit by twin moons. It was a place forgotten by war, untouched by empires, until the wrong starship came. The child, no older than 8, crouched in the garden beneath the temple of dust, carving a piece of driftwood with a dull iron blade. His brow furrowed with intense concentration, lips pressed tight as he slowly shaped a crude 5-pointed star. He hadn't seen his guardian in nearly 6 months, but he believed fervently, stubbornly, that the man would return today. Behind him, the wind carried faint engine hums. He didn't hear them. He was too focused, too filled with hope. The blade slipped, nicking his thumb. He hissed, shook his hand, then laughed. The pain was nothing. Footsteps crunched in the dirt. He turned and smiled. Cale Thorn stood like a storm waiting to break. Towering, scarred, and clad in matte black armor dulled by time and use, he approached without ceremony. His rifle was slung lazily over his back, his face emotionless except for the glint in his ice-gray eyes, the faintest softness when he saw the boy. "You've grown," Thorn said. "You're late," the boy replied with a grin, lifting the star toward him. "But I saved this for you." Thorn crouched, taking the wooden star in his gauntleted hand. It was uneven, clumsy, full of errors, but he held it as if it were made of diamonds. "You made this?" "Mm-hmm. To keep you safe. It's a star, so you don't forget to find your way back to me." Thorn's throat tightened. He looked away. "I never forget." The boy beamed. Above them, the sky tore open. The Empire's dreadnought didn't arrive with blaring horns or seismic booms. It came quietly, cutting through, cloud layers like a knife through silk. It released its payload without warning, orbital purification units designed to sterilize planets deemed suboptimal for future colonization. To the Empire, Eidolon 7 was a smudge on the map, a resource world with too many mouths and too few minerals. To Thorn, it was sanctuary. The first explosion cracked the horizon. The second hit closer, shattering the temple's bell tower. Dust and debris rained from the heavens. Thorn grabbed the child and bolted down the sloped trail, shielding the boy with his armored body. Red light flashed from the clouds as drop pods screamed toward the earth. They ran. More civilians joined them, fleeing through canyons as Imperial shock troops landed, faceless in obsidian exo-armor, firing indiscriminately. Screams followed. Blood painted the cliffs. Thorn pulled the boy into a collapsed mine shaft, sealing the entrance behind them with a kinetic charge. "Stay here," he ordered. "No, don't leave." Thorn pressed the carved star into the boy's palm. "Keep it close. I'll come back for you." And then he was gone. It took only 18 minutes for the Empire to finish its purge. When Thorn returned to the shaft, his weapon barrel steaming, his armor soaked with enemy blood, the child was gone, crushed under rubble, lifeless, still clutching the star. His scream echoed into nothingness. Days passed. Eidolon 7 became a memory, a footnote, no sanctions, no trials. The galaxy kept spinning. On Terra, beneath the golden halls of the United Human Directorate, General Cale Thorn stood before the Council of Commandants. Not in shackles, not as a criminal, as a soldier seeking justice. His voice was flat. "They sterilized Eidolon 7. The operation was unprovoked. It was not strategic. It was extermination." One of the counselors adjusted his golden sash. "And the child?" "Dead." Another counselor, older, frowned, but said nothing. The silence told Thorn everything. "The Empire will not be penalized for what it sees as lawful reclamation," came the answer. "We're still recovering from the last war. We can't jeopardize diplomacy." "Diplomacy," Thorn's voice darkened. Your attachment to the boy is understood, General, but retaliation over a single child. Thorn moved faster than any of them expected. In one fluid motion, he unslung the star from around his neck and embedded it into the council table with his knife. It stuck there, trembling. He was not just a child. He was mine. Security took a cautious step forward, but the counselor raised a hand. General, you're grieving. Take leave. We will revisit this matter in a more rational... I'm done with leave. Thorn turned. And you won't revisit anything. That was the last time anyone saw Cale Thorn under flag or rank. The Dreadnought Vengeance Ark disappeared from a secure black site days later. It was never recovered. Neither was its crew, 77 men, all hand-picked, all loyal only to Cale. Thorn, all ghosts now. Weeks passed. On the edge of the far rims, an Imperial listening post went dark. A scout team arrived days later. They found nothing but silence. No bodies, no alarms, only bloodstains, and a message carved into the walls with a vibroblade, for the boy. The footage leaked. No one knew how. Some claimed Thorn did it. Others claimed it was a lie, a psyop, disinformation. The Empire denied involvement in Eidolon 7 altogether. The United Human Directorate remained silent, but the message spread. Cale Thorn, once nicknamed Mother Thorn by his elite unit, an affectionate title born of strange humor and quiet loyalty, was hunting again. The man who trained orphans into commandos, who raised war-hardened soldiers with the cold patience of a parent and the brutality of a predator, had found a reason to break his own leash, and he would not stop. The Empire was slow to respond. A former general, even one with a dreadnought, could be tracked, they reasoned. Caught, contained, then the second base fell. No alarms, no survivors, only a black box log containing a brief transmission. You took everything from me. I will return. The favor, one son, one daughter, one home at a time. For each life lost, Thorn marked a name in a journal. Not just the killers, the administrators, the planners, the politicians who gave silent assent. He hunted not blindly, but methodically. Surgical revenge, measured fury. On a remote moon, he interrogated an Imperial governor for 14 hours, before spacing him alive into the atmosphere. On Colstra 4, a military contractor's entire family vanished. A week later, a data packet surfaced, video of the contractor approving the purge of Eidolon 7 for cleansing efficiency. His body was never found. In back alleys and smoke-choked cantinas, the name Mother Thorn became whispered terror, a myth, a ghost cloaked in black and vengeance. Pirates feared him, soldiers respected him, civilians followed him in secret. The Empire called him a terrorist. His crew called him Mother. He never told them to. Somewhere deep in the void, alone in the dim war room of the Vengeance Ark, Thorn stood over a holographic star chart. Dozens of Imperial outposts glowed red, targets, systems waiting their turn. The boy's star, now cracked and scorched, hung around his neck. He touched it, thumb brushing against its uneven points. There was no anger in his eyes anymore, just clarity. A quiet knock interrupted his thoughts. One of his men, face scarred, voice low. Intercepted chatter from Imperial High Command. They've assigned a hunter. Name? Admiral Voss Harren. Thorn's mouth curled into the faintest ghost of a smile. He turned back to the stars. Let them come. The man hesitated before speaking again. Sir, when does it end? Thorn didn't answer. He didn't need to. Outside, the black of space stretched endlessly, quiet, cold, waiting, just like him. The station had no name, just a code, S927. It clung to the edge of the Vexus Drift, a long-forgotten fuel depot converted into a black site logistics hub. Hidden in a gravity fold, it was designed to be invisible to all but the Empire's highest level, operatives. That made it the perfect first message. They found the outpost in pieces. Sections of its hull floated like metal bones, rotating in slow, silent orbits. The emergency beacon was silent. No life signs, no atmosphere, no power. The recon. Team from the Imperial destroyer Varanthi boarded cautiously, rifles drawn, nerves tight. They were trained for hostile recoveries, not ghost stories. Inside the shattered control room, words had been burned into the walls using focused plasma charges. For the boy, even Admiral Voss Herren, reviewing the live feed from his bridge, felt a chill trace down his spine. Not fear, something deeper, a recognition of method, the precision of the cuts, the lack of panic in the corpses, the way the command staff had been executed, one shot each at close range. This wasn't the work of pirates or rebels. This was military, purposeful, personal. Herren turned away from the feed and activated a secure comm channel. His voice was flat, clipped, emotionless. "It's him," the reply came after a pause. "You're sure?" He left his signature. "Orders?" Herren looked at the starlit void through the viewport. "We hunt the ghost. Cale Thorne never saw himself as a ghost. He was too alive, too present. Each mission, each strike, grounded him in purpose. He wasn't trying to fade away. He was trying to be seen. By the Empire, by those who had allowed the child to be slaughtered, by the galaxy itself. There would be no forgetting him. He moved from target to target with the same ruthless cadence he had taught his Black Ops operatives years ago. Strike fast, vanish faster. But he was never alone. Even without official sanction, men still followed him. Not for money, not for medals, but because they owed him their lives, or their children's. They called themselves Sons of the Mother, a grim joke born of battlefield. Irony. Each had once served under Thorne when he led Unit Zero, a forgotten ghost squad bred for asymmetrical warfare. When he left the Directorate, many had followed. Not because he asked, but because of what he represented. Unflinching justice. Kaiden Holt was one such man. Broad, silent, and steady as granite. He had lost his voice to an orbital flashburn, and never replaced it. Instead, he communicated through a neural-linked datapad clipped to his forearm, responding in terse flashes of digital text. He was Thorne's hammer, precise and unbreakable. Lorne Ash, wiry and sarcastic, handled infiltration. Once a Directorate intelligence officer, now turned saboteur, he thrived in shadows, leaving false trails and corrupted networks wherever they struck. And then there was Varek, an ex-Imperial pilot who defected after seeing a sterilization order issued without trial. He never spoke of what he witnessed. But when Thorne had asked for volunteers, Varek had simply walked into the hangar and climbed aboard. Together, they carved a path through the Empire's spine. Logistics chains collapsed. Ammunition supplies vanished. Tactical warships exploded on launch. Rumors spread like wildfire of a shadow fleet led by a man who couldn't die, who burned star systems for a dead child. The Empire grew nervous. Not afraid yet, but nervous. So they gave Admiral Voss Herren the mandate to end it. Herren wasn't like other officers. He didn't rage or rant. He observed, calculated. He had climbed the ladder not through violence but through ruthless efficiency. And unlike many in his rank, he had studied Cale Thorne. He understood Thorne's patterns. The psychological rhythm behind the strikes. The way he never targeted civilians. The way he always left a message, a pattern like all men had. So Herren created a new pattern. A lie. The data leak was deliberate, classified intelligence suggesting that the Empire had taken children from Eidolon 7 before the Purge, transported them to a black site on Volnath 3 for re-education. Thorn received the intel while docked inside a derelict ore freighter 3 jumps out from Imperial space. He stared at the transmission silently, eyes flicking over the encryption. Traces, the metadata, the timestamps. Ash frowned. "It's bait." "I know," Thorn replied. Caden's data pad lit up. "So we take the hook?" Thorn's eyes never left the screen. "We take the line, and the arm that holds it." They hit Volnath 3 nights later. It was a military fabrication site, half factory, half prison, masked as a decommissioned scrapyard. Patrols were sparse, as expected. The Empire wanted Thorn to arrive. They just didn't expect what came with him. Explosives planted in ventilation shafts, power relays spiked with overload charges. Ash jammed outgoing signals before anyone knew they were under siege. And then Thorn walked through the front gate with 12 Suns behind him, rifles ready. The trap sprung halfway through the facility. Imperial reinforcements poured in, heavy. Armor and plasma repeaters, air support droning overhead. But Thorn had been watching, studying, every access route, every blind spot. He didn't walk into the trap. He dragged it into an ambush. The battle lasted less than 10 minutes. When it was over, the only survivors were Imperial hostages, freed workers, too broken to resist. No children, just a falsified transport log and a decoy data spike, Kaidan. Handed it to Thorn without a word. Heron's voice crackled from the internal comm system before they disabled it. "I see you're still predictable, Thorn." Thorn didn't respond. He didn't need to. Instead, he turned to the main terminal, activated the broadcast relay, and uploaded a message. Encrypted, but made to be found. It was a video of the boy from Eidolon 7, laughing, saying Thorn's name. Then the screen cut to black, replaced by a single phrase, "You made this personal. Now I will make it historic." In the days that followed, Thorn's message went viral. Not through official networks, but through shadow feeds, backdoor relays, and underground channels. It reached mercenaries, smugglers, colonies. Even Imperial troops saw it, and some began to question the orders they followed. Heron doubled. The bounties. He called in favors. He brought in the Reaper Corps, Imperial bounty hunters trained to handle insurgents and rogue warlords. But even they hesitated. Reaper leader Darnak Rai, a cyborg built like a wall of steel and vengeance, reviewed the footage, then declined the contract. "He's not a bounty," he said, sipping cheap whiskey in a bar on Helos Prime. "He's a reckoning." Only one bounty hunter accepted, Lucian Dre, former human, enhanced, rewired, once fought alongside Thorn during the fall of Mantix 6, now freelance, unaffiliated, and cold. He took the contract with one condition. "I don't want the money," he told Heron. "I want the truth." Heron had hesitated. "You were one of his. Why do this?" Dre had stared at the data spike of the boy. "Because if what he says is true, then he's not the criminal here." Thorn knew Dre was coming. He welcomed it. For the first time in weeks, Thorn stood alone at the observation deck of the Vengeance Ark. The carved star was clutched in his hand again, worn smooth by months of war. Behind him, the system's map showed red clusters across the galaxy, targets destroyed, empires shaken. He didn't look back when Kaidan approached. The datapad lit softly. Another outpost marked. "Orders?" Thorn's voice was low. "We bleed them. Not until they beg. Not until they break. Until they remember." Ash entered next, waving a cracked datapad. "We've got chatter. Lucian's moving, he's taking Heron's leash off. Coming for us directly." Thorn finally turned. "Good." Kaidan raised a brow. Ash grinned. "Why's that good?" Thorn looked out at the stars, where so many of his men had died, where the boy's laughter still echoed in memories. His voice was steel wrapped in fire. "Because it means they've run out of cowards." Lucian Dre moved like a ghost through the wreckage of the Ronex belt. 1,000 shattered freighters drifting in eternal silence. His ship, the Thornless Rose, cut between the debris with a predator's patience. Its hull bore no markings. Its weapons were silent. But inside, Lucian was preparing for war. He sat in the pilot's cradle, head lowered, scanning old footage on a cracked visor. Thorne's voice played in his ear. Battle recordings, whispered commands, mid-firefight tactics. Each word reminded Lucian of what they once were. Unit 0. Broken men molded into perfect weapons. Thorne had given him a name when others gave him a number. He remembered the boy, too. The way Thorne had carried him wrapped in scavenged cloaks, always checking his rations, always keeping a hand free for the child. That same man was now lighting half the Empire on fire. Lucian's ship pinged. Coordinates, a trace. He whispered into the void. Found you. Across space, Cale Thorne knew Lucian would come. He'd always known. That was the cost of shared blood in war. Eventually, the reckoning followed. And Lucian wasn't like the others. He wouldn't make speeches. He wouldn't falter. He would ask one question, and depending on the answer, one of them would die. Thorne welcomed it. The Vengeance Ark rested in orbit over Dreos Station, a hollowed-out asteroid-turned-weapons cache. Thorne had crippled the station's defensive grid days earlier, repurposing it into a black site for his final strike preparations. The Empire's frontier colonies were vulnerable now, supply chains buckling, morale fractured. It was time for something permanent. Ash watched the old data feeds roll in, Empire troop withdrawals, civilian riots, military tribunals. He leaned against the console, half amused, half tense. We've set 20 fires and the galaxy's finally looking up. You really think they're gonna let this end anyway but total war? Thorne didn't look at him. That's their choice, not mine. Caden entered next, gesturing silently to the holographic projector. It displayed the inbound ship, Lucian's signature unmistakable. Fast, sleek, old-school stealth drives. No comms, no hail. Ash's smile faded. So, you two going to talk? Or just start throwing each other off bulkheads? He's not here for talk, Thorne said. Ash stared. And you're going to face him alone? Thorne finally turned to face his team, his sons, not by blood, but by fire. Lucian needs to know what happened, the truth. After that, he'll choose. Kaiden tapped his datapad. And if he chooses wrong? Thorne's voice didn't waver. Then I bury my brother. The docking bay groaned as Lucien's ship latched on. Airlock sequences hissed open. Silence hung between them like a drawn blade. Lucien stepped into the Vengeance Ark wearing a matte gray coat over composite armor, pistol at his hip, vibro dagger strapped to his thigh. His eyes scanned the hangar. Empty, quiet, controlled. Thorne stood alone at the far end. Neither moved at first. They simply regarded one another, two statues carved from different wars, once allies, now orbiting judgment. Lucian broke the silence. You really did it. Thorne didn't blink. I warned them. Lucian's jaw flexed. The child. Was he really yours? Thorne nodded once. By choice. Lucian's fingers twitched near his sidearm. And Eidolon? Gone. Lucian exhaled slowly. So you've turned the stars into a vendetta over a ghost? No, Thorne said. Over silence. Over their laughter at a boy's ashes. Over the council who sat in their gold chairs and called him forgettable. Lucian took another step closer. They say you've killed hundreds. Not enough. The room went still again. Lucian drew the pistol, not fast, not with threat, but reverence. He held it loosely, letting the weight hang in the air. I came here thinking I'd kill you. I expected nothing less. But now, I see what they've done. The Empire knew. They knew Eidolon wasn't a threat. They just wanted quiet ground to build a cannon array. They erased an entire world for placement advantage. Thorne's voice dropped. And the boy? Lucian's eyes burned. Just An acceptable loss. The silence was louder than gunfire. Lucian holstered the weapon. I'm not here to stop you anymore. I'm here to help finish it. Thorn stepped forward and extended his hand. Lucien stared at it for a moment, then clasped it tight. Ash leaned into the intercom from the bridge. Well, that was intense. Can we all agree not to have more dramatic reunions without me? Thorn almost smiled. Almost. With Lucian's arrival, the final plans took shape. The target, Arx Valis, an Empire citadel that wasn't just military, it was symbolic. The birthplace of the sterilization protocol, the archive vault that stored the raw directives for colony optimizations. A place drenched in bloodless bureaucracy. They weren't going to destroy it. They were going to broadcast it. Make the entire galaxy see what the Empire had become. Thorn's message wouldn't be another whisper. It would be a scream. In the war room, the crew assembled. Every man there had bled for Thorn, but even they looked uneasy. Arx Valis was a fortress, fully armed, naval fleets, orbital turrets, auto defenses, suicide to approach, madness to attack. Lucian gestured to the star map. We don't strike from the outside. We go in beneath. He explained the plan. Launch covert insertion pods from a cloaked barge buried in asteroid drift. Hack into the sewage intake, disable the firewall uplinks from within. Get to the archive. Plug in the data spike. Broadcast every sterilization order ever issued, including Eidolon 7's. Ash muttered, You really are insane. Thorn's voice was steady. So was everyone who ever changed anything. The plan was set, the date chosen, the stars above. Arx Valis were calm, indifferent. Patrols passed on rigid schedule. Nothing unusual. Nothing to suggest that within a half-dead asteroid nearby, 13 operatives prepped for war. In the last hour before deployment, Thorn sat in his quarters. Alone, he held the carved star again. It was nearly smooth now, the edges worn away by time and friction. He remembered the boy's voice, his laughter, the way he had said, Don't forget to find your way back. He whispered into the silence, I'm still on my way. Then, he stood, armored up, and joined his men. The insertion began under the cover of a meteor storm. A dozen pods launched silently, slipping past scanners buried beneath frozen rock. Impact came fast, violent, but controlled. The team breached the lower ring of Arx Valis with surgical precision. Inside, the halls were sterile, quiet, bureaucratic. Offices filled with terminals, glass walls, analysts. They moved like shadows. No alarms, no hesitation. Ash reached the data core first, hacking in while Lucian covered the door. Kaiden and 2 others swept the flanks. Thorn approached the central console, the place where the fate of colonies was decided with cold keystrokes and line items. He placed the data spike into the port. Uploading now, Ash said. And then, red lights, sirens, Lucian swore. They knew. They let us in. Thorn didn't move. Let them come. They did. Security bots, stormtroopers, enforcers, flooding the corridor in waves. Thorn turned to Kaiden. Protect the broadcast. He stepped into the line of fire, rifle raised, eyes burning. Kaiden shouted silently, but it was too late. Thorn advanced, 1 step, 2, firing in controlled bursts, a wall of fire, a storm of steel. Behind him, the spike finished uploading. The truth spilled across the stars. Every sterilization, every lie, every death. Eidolon's name appeared on screens in 100 systems, a boy's name, and then the screen cut to Thorn's face. He looked into the lens. No helmet, no armor hiding. His eyes. This is for my son. Gunfire roared. The screen went black. Smoke drifted in lazy tendrils through the shattered corridor of Arx Valis. Shrapnel-strewn walls bore the story of battle in jagged gouges, carbon scoring, and the curled remains of melted steel. Kaiden moved like a shadow, dragging thorns, limp body through flickering emergency lights. His fingers dug into the straps of Thorn's armor, blood smearing across his gauntlets with every heaving pull. They'd gotten the broadcast out. Every corner of the galaxy had seen the child's name. Eidolon 7 was no longer just a burned colony. It was a scar seared into the conscience of a dozen species, but now they were being hunted. Ash limped beside them, blood staining his temple, one eye swollen shut. Lucien brought up the rear, covering them with controlled bursts from his sidearm. His face was unreadable, stone carved by guilt and duty. Thorn was barely breathing. They reached a utility shaft and Kaiden slammed the panel open. He hauled Thorn into the narrow crawl space and vanished inside without a word. The others followed. The crawl space led to an abandoned logistics bay, still offline, still forgotten. For now, Lucien sealed the door behind them, then turned to Thorn's body. He's bleeding out. Ash was already at work, stripping his med pack open. You think I don't see that? Thorn's chest rose in shallow gasps, eyes flickering, open for a second. His voice was paper thin. Did it work? Lucien knelt beside him. The whole galaxy saw. Thorn smiled faintly, then slipped unconscious again. Ash gritted his teeth, shoving a coagulant syringe into Thorn's shoulder. I can stabilize him, but if we don't get him off-world soon, this turns into a funeral. Kaiden signed quickly. Extraction ship? Lucien checked his wrist pad. There's one inbound, the Stray Wolf. Old Navy ghost ship. Should arrive in 10. Kaiden's reply was sharp. We don't have 10. The sound of boots echoed down the corridor. Empire forces. Not panicked, not rushing, confident. Lucien turned to the others. You two take Thorn. I'll hold them. Ash looked up, incredulous. You think we're just gonna leave you? Lucien didn't flinch. I made my peace the day I let Thorn walk away from Unit 0. I failed him then. I won't do it again. He stood, checked his remaining ammo, and headed for the exit. Ash looked at Kaiden. We've got two options. Stop him or make this count. Kaiden met his eyes and nodded once. They hoisted Thorn onto a cargo sled and began the slow trek through. The maintenance passages, every second dragging like a lifetime. Behind them, the sounds of gunfire began. Controlled. Precise. Lucien at work. He didn't try to be a hero. He didn't try to win. He just slowed them down. Room by room, shot by shot. Thorn stirred on the sled, mumbling. Lucien. Ash leaned, down. He's buying us time. Don't you dare die on us now. Kaiden tapped a code into the freight lift. It rumbled upward, rising toward the upper decks, toward the hangar. The doors opened into chaos. Empire troopers were already sweeping the area. The Stray Wolf was landing under fire, its side guns laying down suppressive bursts, trying to carve a path for their escape. Ash didn't hesitate. He rolled off the sled, diving behind a crate, returning fire with clinical accuracy. Kaiden yanked Thorn to cover, planting a shield beacon at their feet. Lucien's voice came through their comms, ragged with pain. I'm not making it out. Ash froze. Don't you quit on us now, old man. I need you to get him to the stars. Kaiden tapped in a reply. You were always faster than us. Get to the drop. Lucien chuckled through blood. I lost that race a long time ago. There was a pause, then his voice changed. Sharper, focused. They've got someone coming, not just soldiers. Him. Ash's blood turned cold. Who? High Inquisitor Saros. Even Kaiden stiffened. The Butcher of Helion Prime. The Empire's last sanctioned warlord, a relic of a blood-stained era, one the new regime pretended didn't exist. Saros was a monster who'd gone quiet after exterminating 5 colonies under moral cleansing acts. Now he was coming for Thorn. Ash swore. Why the hell would they send him? Lucien's answer was simple. Because Thorn made them afraid. Then the signal cut. In the corridor below, Lucian stood in the middle of ruined architecture, barely upright. His gun was empty, his blade slick with blood. Around him lay 6 soldiers, broken, scattered like rag dolls, and walking toward him, serene as a priest at a funeral, came Saros, tall, elegant, face hidden behind a mask of silver bone. He looked at Lucian without speaking. Lucian lifted his blade. "You're late," Saros tilted his head. "You should have died with the rest of your program." Lucian smiled through cracked teeth. "And you should have never touched Eidolon 7. Saros drew a single curved saber. "You're not worthy to speak its name." They moved at the same time. The clash was brutal, fast, no hesitation, blade against blade, fists against armor. Lucian was past exhaustion, running on memory and rage, but Saros was precise. Lucian landed one final blow, AAT cut across Saros's side. Then the Inquisitor's saber drove into Lucian's chest. Lucian gasped, blood rushing from his mouth. He locked eyes with Saros and grinned. "Still made you bleed." Saros yanked the blade free. Lucian dropped. No words, just defiance to the last breath. Upstairs, Ash saw the doors to the hangar open and shouted, "Move!" Kaiden pushed the sled hard, driving it into the loading ramp of the Stray Wolf. Gunfire sparked off the hull as auto turrets fought back the encroaching stormtroopers. Ash ran alongside, yelling into the comms, "We're in!" The pilot responded, "Strap in. We're burning hell behind us." The Stray Wolf lifted off, roaring through atmospheric defense fire, spiraling into the sky. Inside the medbay, Thorne's eyes flickered open. He looked around. "Where's Lucian?" Ash couldn't speak. Kaiden just looked away. Thorne closed his eyes. For a long moment, silence hung heavy. Then Thorne spoke softly. "He always kept his promise, even at the end." Ash gripped the side rail. "He bought us time. You bought them truth." "Now what?" Thorne's voice was barely audible. "Now we finish what we started." Weeks passed. The data spike became viral. Galactic uprisings began. The Empire denied, then deflected, then fell silent. Civilian protests ignited across the stars. Colonies once fearful now rose together. And Saros? He began hunting, world by world, trace by trace, searching for Thorne. But the Stray Wolf was never found. They became phantoms, symbols, resistance incarnate. Inside the ship, in a quiet chamber, Thorne stood, no longer the soldier, no longer the grieving father. He had become something else, something the Empire could no longer ignore. He turned to Kaiden and Ash. "It's not about vengeance anymore. It's about legacy." Ash raised an eyebrow. "And what legacy are we leaving?" Thorne stared out the viewport where a dozen rebel ships drifted in formation, answering his signal. One that ensures no child ever burns unnoticed again. The screen dimmed. The stars awaited, and humanity, scarred, hunted, but unbroken, was done kneeling.